With a 5.23% yield, iShares 0 to 3 month Treasury Bond ETF, ticker symbol SGOV, looks to me like a great place to park assets for the short term. Short-term assets means cash that you're planning to spend or think you might have to spend in the very short term. Maybe you have an emergency fund, or you're saving up for a big upcoming purchase, or you have cash that you're waiting to invest. Or you just like to have some cash on the sidelines because it helps you sleep at night. Whatever the reason, you may have cash that you are saving but not investing. Parking this cash in a savings account is one option, and there are definitely some good rates out there, and there is that sweet FDIC insurance that you get with a bank. But you really have to shop around right now to find rates that are north of 5%. You probably can't get this kind of yield at your local bank down the street, and as for the biggest banks, forget about it. But if you'd prefer to park that cash in an investment account in a very safe fund that is currently yielding around 5.25%, well, SGOV is worth a look. So what's this fund all about? The official investment objective of the fund is as follows. The iShares 0 to 3 month Treasury Bond ETF seeks to track the investment results of an index composed of U.S. Treasury bonds with remaining maturities less than or equal to 3 months. So what this says is that this is an index fund that invests in short-term U.S. government bonds. These are also known as treasuries. This is considered a very short-term investment, and as such, it's not as sensitive to changes in interest rates. This means that the fund is very stable. The yield could change over time, but its underlying price is unlikely to move around much at all. Unless the US government goes belly up and can't fulfill its debt obligations, your money is safe. When you invest in this fund, it's as if you are lending money to the US government on a short-term basis, 3 months or less, and you're doing this on a rolling basis. So every 3 months or sooner, they pay you back with interest, and this repeats over and over again. And with SGOV, it's all done for you. You don't have to get in there and remember to buy new treasuries or construct your own bond ladder. You don't have to lift a finger. And the convenience and peace of mind that this fund offers can be yours for the low fee of 0.09%. Totally worth it, in my opinion. This fee is quite low, and when we look at the SEC yield to see how the fund is performing, keep in mind that the yield is net of fees. So the fee is already accounted for in that 5.23% SEC yield, which represents how the fund has performed over the past 30 days. All right, so why SGOV? We've already hit a couple of the reasons, which are the yield, the safety, and the availability. Let's look at what iShares itself has to say about their fund. Why SGOV? 1. Exposure to U.S. Treasury bonds with remaining maturities less than or equal to 3 months. Yep, that's what it is. If you want exposure to short-term U.S. bonds, also known as treasuries, this is the fund for you. Number 2, targeted access to a specific segment of the U.S. Treasury market. What they're referring to here is that these are 0 to 3 month, very short-term treasuries, whereas other funds may give you exposure to longer dated treasuries. 3, use to customize your exposure to treasuries, seek stability in your portfolio, and put your cash to work. Yes, this is a great fund to customize your exposure to treasuries. In other words, to target that 0 to 3 month, very short term type of treasury. To seek stability in your portfolio, absolutely. This is going to be about as stable an investment as you can find. And put your cash to work. Yes, rather than sitting around in a very low yielding savings account, you can actually get some yield here, some nice yield that is north of 5%. What they don't mention here is that there is also a potential tax advantage to investing in treasuries or a fund like SGOV that invests in treasuries. And that is that the earnings may be exempt from state income tax. This is a nice bonus if you reside in a state that has a state income tax. You won't be taxed at a state level on the dividends that you receive from SGOV. Another thing I want to bring to your attention is the price movement of SGOV. If you look at this chart, you'll see these spikes and dips in the price that happen like clockwork each month. All this is the distribution payout each month, which has the effect of lowering the price back down to account for that dividend payout. So don't make the mistake of thinking you can time this and get in while it's low and ride it back up and sell 35 cents higher or whatever. I mean, you can, but it's no different than riding it out and collecting the dividend. There's no edge here. There's no free lunch. And remember too that SGOV isn't meant to be a long-term investment. It's never going to make you rich. If you want to invest to build wealth, well, you're probably better off investing in stocks. But if we're talking about cash that can earn some yield while it's just sitting around anyway, I would not hesitate parking my own money in this fund. I think SGOV is worth consideration, particularly if you don't use Vanguard as your brokerage and therefore you don't have access to VMFXX, which is a federal money market fund that has been yielding slightly more than SGOV and is the default settlement fund for Vanguard investors. But the thing about SGOV is that it's an ETF. So you can buy it at pretty much any brokerage, from Fidelity to Schwab to Robinhood, and usually with no commission. And again, SGOV gets you a really nice yield right now for such a safe product. But you can bet your short-term assets that this rate will go down if and when the Federal Reserve lowers rates. Now, I don't expect any dramatic changes, but this rate could slowly creep down over time. You'll have to decide how far you're willing to ride rates down before jumping ship. But if these are truly short-term assets that you want to keep very liquid or you're planning to use in the short term, your options may be limited. If rates drop, you will likely look around to find that all the similar funds, along with treasuries themselves, are also dropping in yield. That's why I would consider getting in on this fund now and letting my idle cash earn a pretty nice yield while it can, before the party is over.